First, we'll very briefly review what cross-device is and the value it's providing advertisers like yourselves. Then Sandrine's going to guide us as we dig into the report and its biggest headlines and findings. After that, I'll take the reins to show you some key ways to take action with this new data in your hands. And lastly, we'll close as always with our Q&A to make sure we get any questions answered that you might have.
Well, Brian, as we get started, one of the first things I like to address is how CJ has achieved cross-device tracking of sales. So one of the first things I'd like our audience to understand is that CJ's cross-device tracking is dependent upon anonymized customer profiles that CJ and Conversant have together created using customer shopping records, a lot of digital touch points, and first-party cookies. With about 200 plus million profiles that we now share between Conversant and CJ, we use these profiles to bridge that gap between where an affiliate sale occurs and where it ends across devices.
That's a lot of profiles, and that sounds powerful. But that said, what does connecting profiles mean in real-world terms?
Well, think of it this way. If a customer's first engagement with an affiliate link happens on a mobile device, but the sale ends up happening later on a different device, such as a desktop or a tablet, CJ uses the customer profiles to connect the customer journey across the devices so that we can credit the sale to the affiliate channel and to the publisher that had the last click. So our profiles are deterministic and transaction-based, which means that we use real but anonymized data, such as email addresses, to verify our profiles. And what's more, and an important part of our tracking, is that we're continually verifying our profiles. So Brian, if you had the unfortunate accident happen, like my husband recently had happen to him, where he lost his cell phone while he was fishing in a really fast-moving river.
Oh no.
Once you go out and buy a new cell phone, CJ's able to map your profile back to your device within 4 days. So this is why CJ's cross-device tracking is accurate, persistent, and can be achieved at scale.
Thank you, Sandrine. So getting to the value of what all that means for you, our audience, when we first launched our solution, we were confident that it would allow advertisers like you to do more with your programs as a result, and it turns out that we were right. So how does it help you to do more? Well, first, by capturing cross-device orders, it turns out we're capturing high consideration, high value purchases, which add new value to your programs. We'll cover this in more detail when we're reviewing the report itself shortly, but one way that we know this is that multi-device orders are driving higher average order values, or AOVs, and are being completed days or even weeks after the initial click. At the same time, these orders are often being referred by content and social publishers. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that affiliate shoppers are much more likely to put in the time to do the research to make sure that they're making a good decision. And then they're utilizing content, social publishers to find the reviews and expert advice that they need. This makes total sense when the data shows that these are resulting in higher price point, higher order values. Consider the critical role that content and social publishers play in the discovery stage of the consumer journey. Thanks to cross-device, you can do more with your programs because engaging with these early stage publishers can be done with confidence. So to say that all one more way, cross-device allows you to do more now because now you can optimize by the shopping paths that these high-value consumers are following. When you take this and you use your own cross-device reporting to tie in the days, devices of this audience, you've now created a bedrock that you need to build and run all kinds of new affiliate strategies. Okay, enough with my lecturing. Sandrine, would you be so kind as to take us through the report?
Absolutely. So we're going to look at some of the key findings that are within the report. And before we get into that, I just wanted to look at a bit of the methodology that I used to create the report. So the data you'll find in this report was created using transactions from about 1,000 plus clients in the CJ network that have been cross-device enabled. And we looked at those sales from those advertisers between June 2017 through February of this year. The clients are primarily US based and primarily retail sector clients. And if you haven't yet had an opportunity to download the report, which was published in May, it's available for download at our Junction site, CJ Junction, it's junction.cj.com. So that's where you can find the report. And let's get into talking about some of the great stuff we have to share with our audience.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start talking about shopping behaviors, because this is a great place to start, because what we found is that device usage paths for cross-device sales tell a really important story. When we look back at the nearly full year of cross-device sales, what we find is that mobile devices are playing a really large role in affiliate shoppers' customer journeys. So as you can see here, Brian, when you add up the share of cross-device orders that are starting on mobile devices, and so that means smartphone and tablet orders, and then you compare it to the desktop engagements, it's nearly a 50-50 split.
Wow.
But let's note something really important here, which is that 63% of cross-device sales are still completing on desktops.
Now, why are so many still completing on desktops? What do you think that means?
Well, desktops are still where shoppers go to complete most of their purchases, because, even though smartphones have gotten larger, and even I find myself shopping more and more on a smartphone, at the end of the day, shopping on a desktop or a laptop's bigger screen, and the fact that there's a keyboard, it still makes it easier to compare products and then eventually check out. But that said, what we're seeing is that many websites have really improved their mobile browsing and checkout experience. So like I said, I find myself shopping more on my smartphone because it is becoming easier. And so what we anticipate to see over time is that the share of cross-device sales that are completing on smartphones is going to increase, and that 63% of concluded orders on desktops or laptops is going to decrease. So what we really want our advertisers to take away from this data point is that cross-device tracking shows just how many affiliate sales are being prompted by mobile engagements, such as those that are happening perhaps through an email opened on a smartphone. In fact, about 68% of emails that are sent by retailers today are opened on a mobile device. So it's really vitally important for advertisers to have promotional strategies and publisher relationships in place that are going to reach shoppers on their smartphones and their tablets. I kind of think of it this way. In a mobile-first world, we need our advertisers to approach their affiliate programs with mobile-first strategies.
Mobile first, that makes sense to me. And going a little further to our next section, at the same time, let's also note that 31% of orders originated on a desktop and were completed on desktop, and that's still a lot.
Yeah, that's right. So let's look at the common device paths on this slide here. So by taking the orders, all the complete cross-device orders that we tracked across the network, what we see are the share of sales by the different device paths for these orders. And so view into the devices that affiliate shoppers are using across their buying journeys. And the most popular shopping path for cross-device orders are what we call desktop-to-desktop sales. 31% of affiliate cross-device orders took this path.
So, well, we're talking about cross-device sales, though. So if this is a cross-device sale, what's a desktop-to-desktop cross-device order anyway?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we're able to distinguish with our cross-device tracking is orders that are happening on one desktop or laptop and completing on an entirely different one. And so these are orders, that think about your day-to-day experience. These are orders that start on one desktop and finish on another if you start browsing at home, for example, and then go into work and make a purchase, or vice versa. So a lot of us are in the situation of browsing at work and then shopping at home. So that's what a desktop-to-desktop order is. Okay. The next most common path for sales is the smartphone to desktop path. About 30% of our cross-device orders start on a smartphone and then complete on a desktop. Again, this is a huge call out for advertisers about the dominance of smartphones in initiating affiliate shopping journeys. And also to note here, shopping paths that involve a tablet, they overall account for fewer orders, as you can see, but there's something very important that I wanted to note about tablet sales. Over time, I've noticed that tablet sales are becoming less and less dominant in the network. And I think that's a reflection of the fact that smartphones are getting easier to shop on. So tablet sales overall are declining. But as it stands today, some of the network's highest value sales are occurring on tablets. And this is especially true in the home and garden category, which has some of the highest rates of sales on tablets and higher cross-device AOVs overall.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think AOV adds something important to the story. So let's talk more about that. You say that tablets are declining in use, but they still drive the highest AOV. And what more can you say that this report shows us about average order value?
Well, one of the big takeaways from this report and cross-device tracking overall is the impact that cross-device tracking has on average order values. So as you can see here, we found that orders which involve multiple devices result in higher average order sales. Cross-device sales have AOVs that are 23% higher than single device orders. So orders on smartphones have the highest increase overall. There's a 37% difference between single device and cross-device orders on smartphones. And then right on down the line, you see desktop cross-device sales are 19% higher and tablet sales are 15% higher. Simply, when an advertiser can track cross-device sales, what they're doing is capturing higher AOV sales overall. And the explanation for this is that cross-device tracking is capturing orders that are the high consideration purchases that we make. And those take longer to convert. They generally involve multiple devices, but they're ultimately higher in value.
Okay. So we're capturing these higher value sales. They take longer and they're over multiple devices. And now we're capturing them because of cross-device. But I mean, is this a good thing for advertisers? I mean, we're getting these higher value orders, but that means higher commission orders. And if they're already happening, I mean, doesn't that just mean advertisers are just paying more money?
Well, you can think of it this way, though. What's at stake here is really understanding the value, the real value of affiliate sales. In some organizations, affiliate is known for bringing in lower value sales. But the reality might be that high value orders are being driven by affiliates, but those sales just aren't being captured if they involve a lengthy research process that migrates across devices. I mean, just think of the last high ticket purchase you may have made and how much research it involved.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I'm actually shopping right now for a new camera, and I'm definitely taking as much time as I can to know I'm making the right purchase. And content sites, review sites, that's where I'm going for all my research information. They're definitely influencing me, even though I'm taking a lot of time to buy this thing.
I went through the same thing last year when I was buying an espresso machine last year. I mean, I spent weeks looking at all the different reviews and watching the videos on all the devices that I own. So, shopping stories like yours and mine, and I'm sure like our audience has experienced themselves, they really are a good example of the types of shopping paths that a cross-device tracking captures. And when we collectively have a better view into average order value, advertisers can better allocate where they put their marketing spend, by channel and by publisher, and then they can use that to drive higher value sales overall.
Makes sense.
So, a good corollary point to the AOV story we talked about is also what we've learned about the average time to conversion for cross-device sales and how that changes by publisher types. So what you see here in this chart is the days that it takes a cross-device sale to complete after the last click. Coupon and cashback publishers, for example, up at the top, you can see about 50 to 60% of their sales convert within 24 hours of the last click. And then another 20% or so complete within 1 to 7 days. But for content search and social publishers, it's an entirely different story. With cross-device tracking in place, what we've seen is that 38% of their sales, 30% of these publishers' sales complete more than 8 days past the last click. And so, content search and social publishers, they've been the most impacted by cross-device tracking in the network. And I think it's because these publishers are driving a high share of sales that take 8 or more days to convert because they're high consideration sales. And these publishers, I just want to make a note of, they're frequently the ones that are helping with the discovery of new brands and facilitating that research that we just discussed. So as an advertiser, I think it's important to note that if you want to grow your sales with content search or social publishers, your program terms need to provide referral periods that are greater than 8 days.
Yeah, I know I'm discovering new brands as a result of that with these cameras I'm looking at. So that's definitely a good point. And as a reminder to all those listening too, CJ advertisers you can offer program terms at the publisher specific level. So if you'd like to provide longer referral periods only to content, search, and social publishers, and a different referral period to other publishers, you can easily set that up.
So Brian, one of the exciting data points I wanted to be sure to share on our webinar today with our audience is this view on the differences by day of week between orders in our network that are one device and orders that are cross-device sales. Because what I found is that by looking at the day of week on which these orders complete, it became really clear that cross-device sales increase on the weekends. And now this was kind of a light bulb went off in my head, because for the past few years in the affiliate channel, what we've seen is that sales on Sundays have steadily been gaining. And now it's clear why. Cross-device sales on smartphones and tablets are peaking on this day. And so one of the most valuable uses of cross-device data in a program is how it can help an advertiser refine the strategies to the device level. And then by tying together the day of week and device preference for sales in a program, you can get really sophisticated with promotional planning.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What would be an example you could give us of that kind of sophisticated planning?
Okay, here's one. So our network data shows that cross-device sales on smartphones and tablets increases as the weekend approaches. And the greatest share of sales on devices is happening on the weekends, as I just said. So which makes sense, right? Because many of us don't even want to get near a desktop or laptop on the weekend because it feels too much like work.
Right.
So, I think the opportunity here is for advertisers to create placements or promotions with their publishers that are well adapted to mobile users. In fact, if you note the high rate of tablet usage on Sundays, and then remembering what I just told you about sales on tablets being some of the most valuable sales, there's a good opportunity, I think, for advertisers to work with their publishers who maybe have a tablet app, and then to promote within that app on Sundays.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great example.
Now, before I leave off and turn the webinar back to you, Brian, I just wanted to be sure to talk a bit about some tips for the holidays, because I think there's definitely some cross-device learnings from Holiday 2017 that are included in the report that are going to be applicable to the holiday season that's just around the corner.
Great. All right. What do our advertisers need to know?
Well, the important thing to note is that cross-device shopping paths, they show a big difference in how shoppers use their devices on Black Friday versus Cyber Monday, which are the most important retail shopping days of the year. And, smartphones are playing a key role on both days, but in different ways. So take Black Friday, for example, which in this chart at the bottom is the dark blue line. So Black Friday is a day that finds many of us in the US, still out on vacation. We may be traveling. We're frequently away from our desktops. So it's not surprising to see that on Black Friday last year, many sales were migrating between devices. 17% of sales last Black Friday began on a desktop but completed on a smartphone. And then 26% of sales started on a smartphone and ended on a desktop. So that's 43% of sales that migrated between two devices, or those two devices. So, but Cyber Monday, on the other hand, is a very different story to take note, because it's a work day. And so, as consumers and shoppers who want to take advantage of the great deals that are released on Cyber Monday, they have to navigate between their home and work desktop or laptops. And so 36% of Cyber Monday sales last holiday season started on one desktop and completed on another. And then the rate of sales that complete on a smartphone is lower than on Black Friday. So, to sum it all up, the strategy here for retailers for this holiday season is to really think about, how can you leverage Black Friday's heavy smartphone usage for browsing and purchasing by creating promotional exposure strategies that give you really big mobile coverage. But when it comes to Cyber Monday, since more sales complete on a desktop and then migrate between desktops, retailers, they really need to take into account that shoppers are going to be juggling that work and shopping on that day. So, to sum it all up, the goal really here is to have a strong mobile reach with your publisher relationships on Black Friday, and then stay focused on desktop reach for Cyber Monday. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back to you now, Brian, to share the strategies that you've prepared for our audience today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sandrine. That was awesome. Well, before we dive into the ways to take action, which I'm very excited to go over with you, let's really quick start with an important way to take action, which is actually getting set up with cross-device to begin with. So if you are not already enabled for cross-device, log into CJ and head to your account settings page. About halfway down the page within account integration settings, you're going to see a section titled cross-device tracking, which looks like this. Click Enable Now, and that's going to send a request to our support team, who will be in contact with you right away to go over any questions you have and help with any updates you might need to make before they can enable your program for cross-device. Now, once that's said, of course, you will, want to know where you can see all this great new data. So to do that, head to Reports Transaction page and pull Commission Detail Report to get it once that data starts coming in. Now, we've added some new fields to this popular order level report to accomplish the new data, namely initiating and concluding browser, device name, device type, as well as a binary is cross-device field, which indicates whether or not the order was captured across devices or browsers. And that raises a good point to mention. It's often minorly forgotten that our cross-device solution also allows you to track across browsers as well. Again, it's the same concept. If the cookie, is dropped, the initial click is on one browser, but the order is completed on another browser, different browser, we'll still be able to capture that by the use of our profiles connecting to that first click. Also in reporting, just don't forget, this isn't cross-device specific, and this has been in our reporting for a while, but you can also see platform reporting in performance reporting by running a performance report by platform. Now, the key to knowing what to do with this new data is tying it into your other data, such as publisher and link-related performance. This reveals the real impact that cross-device is making for your program. So on that note, that leads me right into our first step of taking action, which is analyze. So started with your new data, tying it into other fields, as I said, is what's going to allow you to do more, as we talked about earlier. So dive into your data to find the connections that will structure the actions you'll take, such as which publishers are driving these high value, high consideration cross-device sales, what products are driven in those sales, and even when those sales are happening. And as you dig in, share your learnings with the publishers you're looking to work closer with. Publishers often have more opportunities at their disposal than you're aware of, and offering transparency is the best way to uncover something new together and get a powerful new partnership going. Now, as I walk through these 3 key ways to take action, I'm going to use example advertisers to give you a practical sense of what this might look like for you. So to start, we have a consumer electronics advertiser. They got enabled for cross-device a little over 2 months ago. So now they have some data to learn from and discover that a certain content publisher is driving the highest AOVs in the program by far. And they also see that these sales are mostly initiated on mobile or tablet and conclude on a desktop. Digging a little bit further, they learn that these sales are so valuable because they're driving a specific high-end line of products that they've been trying to push harder. Finally, they notice the highest volume days are Friday through Sunday, when consumers have the time to research these high consideration items. So as you can see, by analyzing to this high level of detail with the additional insight that cross-device data brings, they can now reach out to the publisher with confidence, knowing that they have a lot of meaningful information to share with them, which should produce a highly effective strategy to roll out together. And in that spirit, let's move on to way to take action number 2, which is setting up goals. And as you can already start to pick up, the point of digging into this data is to build something new from what you've learned. Creating these new strategies is done properly by determining goals to measure success by. So let's talk about determining goals. My first important point is that although cross-device activity is going to happen naturally, and we've been talking about that today, it can and will grow for you when you put targeted efforts toward it. You'll make the most of it all by setting regular growth targets and building strategies to achieve them. As you evolve your goals over time, you'll be actively participating in how your program engages with this high value audience, and that's going to drive you incremental growth for your program. So now let's cover an example of what I mean by this. In this example, we have a travel advertiser focused on vacation packages. And they find that 5 specific publishers are driving the top bookings volume for a key resort that they are really interested in driving. 25% of those bookings are cross-device driven, so a hearty amount of them. The business models of these 5 publishers are 3 content publishers, 1 loyalty publisher, 1 social publisher, so a broad mix. So they, after analyzing the data in way to take action number 1, they set up calls and talk to them about setting up placements with each. They put them all in a publisher group to track their performance really effectively, and then gave them all the same percentage growth goals for 3 specific things: bookings of that resort, bookings overall, and then bookings initiated on a mobile device, so they could track all 3 and see if they can meet all 3 of those goals. Now the numbers varied, and not every publisher achieves their goals, but some exceed their goals. For the ones that miss them, they get on the phone again, they discuss how things could have gone better, note it for the future. But for the publishers that exceed their goals, they also get on calls to use that momentum to build new campaigns built around the multi-device behavior that they can now see in the performance data and those original goals that they can now evolve. So now you've got a really good handle on how to analyze your data, including cross-device data, and how to build goal-driven strategies to work closer with publishers and continue to evolve your program. So let's wrap this all up with the last and most important way to take action, and that's collaborating. All right, we started touching on working closer with publishers. So go past just creating your own strategy, and let's talk about collaboration itself. Thanks to the transparency cross-device provides, collaboration means that you can take your own ideas and combine them with publisher know-how and opportunities to create a whole new level of targeting. Publishers understand their audiences, and that includes consumers who aren't your customers yet. So by combining that with your knowledge of your customers and analyzing your cross-device activity, you'll be making the most of this new data with your hands. So get transparent with your publishers to do new things. And let's cover another example, which will be our final one here, to give you a practical sense of just how powerful collaborating like this can be. In this example, we've got a fitness and sports apparel advertiser who identifies a popular social publisher is driving top AOVs and sales that initiate on mobile and conclude on desktop. Additionally, they see the big shopping days are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Why these days? Well, it's not clear yet looking at their own data. There's no way they could know just looking at their own data. But once they share this with the publisher, they actually find out this is when they've been making these most successful social posts featuring the advertiser's brand, which is driving a big impact every time. And furthermore, the publishers got way deeper insight into these posts, such as the time of day they went out, the hashtags they used, the images they used, everything. So together with the advertiser, they work out a deal to build an extensive, extended affiliate social campaign that boosts performance more with every next post. So you can see that through collaboration, the advertiser and the publisher have built a powerful campaign that couldn't have existed without, one, the use of cross-device tracking, and two, total transparency with each other about what's going on and what's possible. And I think this well illustrates just how significant the impact of cross-device can be when these ways to take action are followed. Analyze, set goals, and collaborate.
Thank you, Brian. That was a really clear plan for making use of cross-device data and the insights that advertisers now have. I know it's not always easy to understand how to harness all this new information, but I think these ways you just shared to take action can really make a difference. And I'd also like to point out that within the report, there are some cross-device benchmarks for both advertisers and publishers. And we put these in the report so that our clients could assess how their own program is performing in terms of cross-device. So by different cross-device paths and by average order value, we've created benchmarks for different sectors, different advertiser categories, and different publisher types. So if you're an advertiser or a publisher who's listening to this webinar, if you've been wondering just how your performance on smartphones is on par with others in your category or your publisher type, this is the place you can go in the report to find out.
Great, thank you. Well, we've given you a lot to think about today, that's for sure. Cross-device tracking has opened up many doors, both for us understanding more about the affiliate space overall and what that means for you, as well as how cross-device allows you to do more with your programs than ever before. If there's one thing that we can ask you to take away from today, it's just to take a second to ask yourself, what will your cross-device success story look like? We'll hope you will take those ways to take action once you've got that report in your hands, and you'll analyze, set goals, and collaborate, and tell us how it worked out for you too. And without further ado, I think we'd also love to hear any questions you have.
Great. Brian, Sandrine, thank you so much. That was a lot of great information and a lot of key takeaways there. Just as a reminder to everyone, you can access that report again. The URL is in the chat widget in the GoToWebinar software, and the URL is junction.cj.com. So you can go there now and find that report. So if you have any questions, go ahead at this time and throw them in the chat, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can in the time that we have remaining today. So let's get started. Brian, I think you talked about, getting cross-device enabled, but, maybe for someone who might be new to a program, how do I tell if I'm already cross-device enabled?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because there was sort of a flurry of it when we did that, and gosh, it's already over a year ago, so you might not remember. You can actually look in the same exact spot. So if you go to that account settings page, scroll down under account integration settings, that cross-device section will still be there, but it's just an information box, and it'll say, cross-device approved, and we'll let you know whether or not you're currently enabled. It'll also let you know if maybe you got the process started and you didn't actually kind of wrap it up with tech, and it might say in progress or pending. So if that's the case too, just get in contact with our support team and they'll help you get to the finish line.
Great, thank you, Brian. Another question is, can non-joined publishers see that my program is enabled for cross-device? Does that help with recruitment for publishers, having visibility into your program features?
Yeah, that's a great. I'll take this one too, if that's okay. That's a great question, and yes, they can. So what we've done in the interface on the publisher side is there's a badge that will tie to your program once you're cross-device enabled. So as publishers are looking around CJ for programs to apply to and brands that they want to promote, they will see that you know have this badge next to your name and your logo saying that you are cross-device enabled. And additionally, we've built it into the search filters so they could actually filter our whole network of advertisers by cross-device enabled advertisers. So if they're specifically looking for them, it's really easy to pull up that list. So it's definitely a benefit in terms of publisher recruitment to showcase that to non-joint publishers, that they can be confident too that no matter how consumers are engaging with their content in their own consumer journey, it's going to be tracked thanks to cross-device tracking.
Great insight there, Brian. Another question here is, I know you talked a lot about strategy and goals, Brian. Can you give some advice on, like, how does an advertiser go about setting goals, and what makes sense for their program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think goals are kind of one of those, it's a very gray area, and goals are intended to be personal. I think sometimes really arbitrary goals are put out just to say, well, we want our program to grow by 10% this year. And that's great. That's fine to have a growth goal, but if it's that broad, it's not going to instruct you on what you should actually do to achieve it. The key to setting goals is really making them specific, which is why in that example with the travel vacation advertiser, they're not just looking to grow. They don't just want these publishers to drive more bookings overall. They do track that, but they're also tracking for that specific resort that they're really interested in driving more bookings for. They want to track that, and that's going to tell them so much more after the fact to look back and go, okay, yeah, they drove, 45 bookings, but 20 of them were for that key resort, and that's really valuable to us. So it's, you need to think about your own program, your own goals, and your own organization's priorities, but set those specific goals and communicate them to publishers, because the more that they know about those goals, the more that they can target their efforts to achieve them specifically, and that's ultimately going to drive you more value.
If I could add something to that, Brian.
Sure.
I just want to say I think that the holiday time is going to be a good time to maybe set a small cross-device goal for an advertiser's program, because I feel like with all the shopping volume that happens over the holiday, you get a really good sense of how something might perform. So if there's something you can test, I feel like you're going to get a lot of volume. Then you can look back at the results and try and apply that, what you learned, to the year ahead. So I think some people think, well, maybe a holiday isn't the best time to test, but I actually take the opposite view and say, I think it's a great time to test something specific to cross-device so that you have lots of inputs for the year ahead.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And publishers are hungry for new opportunities. If you reach out to them and say, look, our program, it's cross-device enabled now, it wasn't a year ago. We would love to set up those same placements we did last year, but let's see if we can't add a mobile twist to it or an email twist to it or something that helps you test out and try to reach some of those cross-device goals like you're mentioning, Sandrine. Yeah, I totally agree. The pronounced, traffic that we see on those big shopping days means that test and the results that you get from it are going to be that much more meaningful.
Great, thank you both. I think that's some great advice. Brian, one of your strategies was around collaboration, and we have a question about, my program has a lot of publishers in it, so how do we manage collaborating with publishers, and how important is it to stay in contact with those publishers?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a classic, kind of complication with the affiliate channel is it is all about relationships. You want to have as many productive relationships as you can, but it's not that different than, friendships in the real world. If you have hundreds of people that you're friends with, you probably don't know all of them as well as, the next friend. You probably have friends that you're much closer with. And honestly, you can kind of treat affiliate the same way. If there are publishers that are particularly successful with promoting your brand, maybe in kind of that top group in your program, I would always suggest start with them. Start with that group that's already proving that their audience is, matching up with your products, matching up with your brand, and work on a one-on-one basis to test things out there. And then use them as use cases. So maybe it's a particular content publisher that's big in your program. You do something great with them. Well, now you can kind of move and start looking into that mid-tier group. Find another great content publisher that maybe isn't doing as much, but you could do something similar with them and kind of go from there. And the learnings are going to help guide you to new publishers throughout your program. But yeah, trying to collaborate on a deep, transparent level with every publisher in your program it's not going to be feasible, all at the same time. So definitely pick some key targets and work up from there. And this is definitely a long-term channel, so you can continue to do that with new publishers every season, every time you want to test something.
Great, thank you, Brian. Another question is about we mentioned, longer referral periods. How do we go about and manage offering different referral periods to different publishers? Do you have to create, a ton of program terms? And what is your kind of best practice for doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I would definitely encourage you to do two things here. So first of all, and I alluded to it a little bit back when I mentioned that you can offer multiple referral periods. So they're set up in your program terms. So every program term, you have that option in the construction of it to set its referral period, how many days you want it to be. So all you need to do is set up a second one and change it for that second one. But in terms of targeting it to certain groups, what I actually recommend is kind of start using your publisher groups a little bit more, that actual function within the interface, because that's going to help you out here a lot. For instance, if for instance, very cross-device driven, you want to have all your content, search, and social publishers to have that other second term, you could put them all in a publisher group and then very easily just push that new term to that group and they'll all get it. So I would say a nice balance of using the functionality that publisher groups offers, as well as the flexibility of creating multiple program terms, should make it work pretty well for you. And no, I wouldn't create dozens of different referral periods and lengths, but you can certainly change it over time and test it out. Maybe, first you try 15 days with content, search, and social publishers, and you find, okay, that made a difference. And maybe then you test out 18 days for the next month or two, and you find, well, that actually didn't really change anything. Okay, well, we could just hang there, or test it out as you go along. So I know that was kind of a lot there, but I think a combination of using publisher groups and creating a couple, one or two tiers of program term offers, that's going to help you get the process started and understanding what changing that is going to do for your program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian. And just as a reminder, you can look in your account and see how long it's taking your orders to actually convert and get some hard data on that as well to influence decisions. So we always recommend being very data heavy in decisions you're making. But great advice there, Brian. I think we'll have one last question here, unless we get some more in the chat, and then we'll close it out for today. So, Brian, I know you talked a little bit about just the value of cross-device, but can you just reiterate, if I'm already getting these sales, what's the value of tracking them through affiliate and integrating with cross-device?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's really two sides to it, because it's an easy thing to say, well, why pay for something I'm already getting? But the truth is, or not the truth, the value is, one, that visibility in the organization, like Sandrine talked about. So, in order to understand what this program means for your organization in terms of the value it's driving, the customers it's bringing to your brand, you've got to see everything you can see. You need full transparency to fully understand it, because then you can make well-informed decisions. You could have a publisher who is maybe one of your most influential publishers in your program, and without cross-device tracking, it looks like they don't matter at all. It looks like they have no sales. you could expire them, they'll stop working with you, and all of a sudden you'll lose what were seemingly organic sales. They weren't. They were actually affiliate cross-device sales, but they'll go away and you won't know why. So the transparency is going to help you uncover that value that any certain publisher, any certain product line, all this stuff that you can learn from the cross-device tracking. That's the benefit of that transparency, is understanding what you can do. And then, as I talked about a little in my strategies, the key of the value of this thing is, once you have that transparency, actually acting on opportunities that you couldn't have beforehand. So whether that's the last example with the sports apparel advertiser who, because of cross-device and because they're sharing this with a publisher, well, now they're collaborating on this affiliate social strategy that neither of them would have reached forward and understood without all of those pieces being brought together. So the value is that, with understanding comes new opportunities, both for your channel overall within your organization, as well as specific publisher relationships. And I think that alone just really showcases just how valuable added transparency like this is.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Brian. And actually, guys, we have one more question. I think this would be a good ending note is, can you remind me again, where do we see cross-device reporting in our account?
That's good. Yeah, absolutely. So just as a quick reminder, there's kind of two key places that you're going to see it in your reporting. One is cross-device fields within commission detail reporting. So this is on the transaction reporting page, and we've added new fields that are cross-device specific. So you can see which sales were tracked via cross-device, and also details like initiating device, concluding device, and so forth. A lot of what led us to the averages that you see in the report. And then also you can go to performance reporting to look at platform reporting. Again, that's not cross-device specific, but it's a really nice body of information to add color to that order level report in commission detail reporting.
Great. Thanks for that, Brian. And thanks again, Brian and Sandrine, for the awesome content and information today. I hope everyone got a lot out of today's webinar. With that, we are going to wrap it up. Just a couple reminders. If you asked a question that we didn't get to that was more account specific, we're going to go ahead and try to follow up with you after the session today. The recording of the webinar, again, will be sent out to you via email sometime later this afternoon. And as a final reminder, there will be a survey that pops up when you exit the webinar. If you have a minute, we would really appreciate you taking that just to give us some feedback. So thank you everyone again for joining, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.